Hello and welcome back. I'm Erica with Revival Threadworks, and in today's QMX video, we're just going to do a quick little rundown of some tips and tricks I have for using your QMX machine. So let's get started. So tip number one is how to pull up your bobbin threads when you're starting your panto or block and then when you're done with it. This is a question that I've seen over and over and over in the Facebook groups, and it's not as intuitive as it is when you're using your sewing machine, because at the end of the block you have to pull the bobbin thread up then too. So I'm just going to show you a quick little video of how to pull up the bobbin threads at the beginning and at the end of your project. Okay, so one of the things that I've been seeing in the Facebook groups a lot is people are a little bit confused on how to pull up their bobbin threads when they start and then how to pull up their bobbin threads when they end. Now, it's a little bit different than when you're using your regular sewing machine as a sewing machine, because you would normally use your hand wheel to put the needle down, and your hand wheel is all the way back there, so it's really difficult to get to. So what we're going to use is the needle down button on your machine. So what I want you to do is gather a little bit of your top thread, just kind of pull it right here, and you're going to want to make sure that you have set your start position for wherever it is you want to sew, because once you set your start position, we're going to move this out of the way just a little bit, and you want to be able to hit that button and get exactly where you need to be. So we are at our start position. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the needle down button, and you can't see it here because I'm trying to zoom in with the needle. So I'm going to hit my needle down while I'm holding this thread over here, okay? And now I'm going to put the needle back up, and I'm going to gently pull this thread, and I'm going to gently pull the machine out of the way, and hopefully you can see I've got a bobbin thread coming up here, okay? So I'm just going to grab the other end of that bobbin thread, and now my bobbin thread is up. And then when I hit my back to start, it's going to take me right over here where I need to be. So that's how you would get your bobbin thread up when you start. Now the next thing you're going to have to do is pull up your bobbin thread after you're done running your design. Okay, so I've gone ahead and run just a very short little line here just so we can stay within my little zoomed in screen here. So now that we're done running our design, the first thing that we're going to do to get the bobbin thread ready to pull up is we're going to take our machine and move it out just a little bit, just enough to where we can grab that thread. Okay, we want to grab that thread, and then we want to move our machine right back as close as we can get to where that needle went down, and then we're going to hit needle down, needle back up, and then we're going to move it and pull it at the same time. So as we pull this thread and we move this, you're going to see that bobbin thread come back up, okay? So I've got this one still looped around my finger, and then now I have a bobbin thread I can pull up. So now I've got two loops that I'm working with, okay? Hopefully you can see this. We've got two loops here. One loop over here on the right is the bobbin thread. On the left is the top thread. So what we're going to do is just take a pair of scissors, clip both of those loops. And I want you to watch these two threads over here, okay? So these over here are both bobbin threads. And when we move the machine out of the way, one of those is going to pull up under, because it's the one that's still attached to the machine. And then we're left with this bobbin thread and the top thread, and we can tie them off and we're ready to go. Okay, so now that we know how to pull up those pesky bobbin threads, it's time to talk about basting your quilt edges. Now, you don't have to baste your quilt edges all the time, and I'm just going to say this, I don't know if it's proper or not, but for me, I've been quilting some different projects that aren't quilt. So pot holders and sneakers and different things like that. And I know for a fact that I'm going to be staying inside a certain area. So I'm not worrying about basting the edges if I don't have to. If you're basting a quilt and you need to make sure that you don't have your presser foot caught up in your fabric, meaning you're going to take your presser foot off of the fabric and then come back on, you absolutely want to baste. So I want to show you a very simple way to baste. I know that for those of us that don't do free motion quilting, which is definitely me, I was a little terrified to do the free motion quilting to do the basting. So I'm going to show you how to use your machine to do the basting. Okay, so I've got my quilt here, and I need to go ahead and baste these edges because I do want to take my design over the sides. Don't pay attention to any of this. This is actually next week's video, and I'll be showing you some cool stuff next week. But for now, I just want to make sure that I get this basted down. And for people like me who don't know how to free motion quilt with any sort of confidence whatsoever, using the line feature is exactly what I'm going to do. So here's what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and go to our screen. I'm just going to show you real quick on the screen what we're going to do. So we're just going to choose the line function. And then we're just going to go to the start point. And I'm going to show you both the start point and the end point down on the quilt, but just know that I'm going to be at the start point and then the end point. So I'm just going to set them both. So on the start point, I am just going to select the very top corner up here as far up as I can go. I'm going to hit that as my start point. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my needle and move it down here just as far as my carriage will go. And I'm going to hit the end point. Okay. So just to show you what that's going to look like on the screen. It's just going to look like this. We're going to hit next, move to start, and then we're going to go ahead and baste our line. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm going to go ahead and run it off camera, and then I'm going to show you at the end of it what it looks like. Okay, so now I'm done and I have a perfectly basted line. I do want to point something out up here. It does look a little bit weird, and that's because I forgot to put my presser foot down. So just, kind of ignore that and don't do that. Don't do what I did. But anyway, now we have a perfectly basted line right here on the edge of our quilt. We don't have to worry about any unevenness in our stitches or worried about anything. It's all done. So you can do the same thing up here at the top. Just use your line feature, set your start, set your end, and you're good to go. Okay, so another tip that I want to give you is checking the information on your screen. So I know that when I first started sewing with the QMX, now again, I haven't done a whole lot of sewing with the QMX because I've been a little bit wrapped up in doing these videos and I haven't done very many projects, but I didn't notice how much information was on the screen, meaning when I pull up a design, when I pull up a panto or a block or whatever, the information that's provided on the screen is so much more information than I ever even noticed in the beginning. So I want to go ahead and point out to you what the screen's going to show you and what you can do with that information. Okay, so here we are with the main screen. I'm sure you're very familiar with the screen. We're just going to go into Quilt, and then it brings us into this area right here. So we can choose between a block, a panto, or a line. I'm going to go ahead and hit panto because I want to show you what information is available here. So it's going to bring you up here. We just need to go to Design Library, choose a design. I'm going to choose sewing just because, I like to sew. So what it's going to do is it's going to put a bunch of designs on here, a bunch of what I call repeats on here. So it's just going to show you this information here. And then when we hit next, we're going to see what design height it's already set it at. I think the default is putting it in is 2.5, because I think with every panto I've tried to load, it always starts with 2.5, which is great. When I first started, this was the information that I was paying attention to. For some reason that I can't even explain, I wasn't even paying attention to all of this. I was looking at the design, but I wasn't paying attention to these numbers here. So what these numbers are telling you is if your design height is 2.5 inches, you're going to measure down 1.26 inches or 1.24 inches from the bottom to get your center point here, which is your start point, and then your end point over there. It's going to tell you that if you run this height with this many repeats, you're going to have 22.43 inches sewn across. Okay, so when we start to change the height, I want you to just kind of take a peek at this and watch what's happening. Watch how it's changing. We're going to lose a couple of repeats over there. So the bigger that we get, the fewer pantos it's going to sew out, because it's not going to sew any kind of a partial panto, right? We're only going to get full pantos. So the taller that we get, we can't do as many repeats across here. So just pay attention to how this is changing, how this is changing, and it's going to give you so much information. Okay, so if let's just say that we have, now I have a video that shows how to do some sizing, or answer some sizing questions on how to get a proper, width, whatever. But I just want to show you this right here. So if we're curious to know what kind of space our pantos are taking up, we can take this number, which is the 19.94, and we see that we have 4 pattern repeats. We take that number, 19.94, divide it by the number of repeats we have, which is 4, and then it's going to tell us exactly how big that panto is, because we've got at 2.5, well, actually it's 5 inches by this. So it's approximately 5 inches by 5 inches. Okay. So this is really great information when you're trying to figure out where to place your needles, where to get started. Now, I talk a lot about planning your quilt before you ever get to the machine, But this is some information that you can start pulling up on your machine before you get started so that you can take the information that you get here, take it to your quilt at the table or wherever the floor, wherever you have it, get it all laid out, and then bring it back to the machine and you got everything set up. So this is really good information. Now you can also flip your design. You can turn the orientation and flip it that way. You can flip it this way. You can do all kinds of different things on this screen. Now, this is where we would position our design. So that I know that this is not my total frame space. 19.94 is not my total frame space. So this is where we would go and set up different things. But what I was just trying to show you is how you can use this information to learn so many things about your machine. So now that we know that there's a lot of information here, you know what? Sorry, I pulled up all kinds of weird information. I'm not really sure why I did that. But now that we know that our machine can give us a lot of measurement information, now we need to take it over and start marking up our quilt. Okay, so now that we know how to pull up our bobbin thread and we know how to tack down our quilt and we know how to find some really good, important measurements in the machine, now it's time to start marking out our quilt. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to tell you how to mark out your quilt specifically because obviously I have no idea what size your quilt is and I don't know what size your pantos are going to be and I don't know that. What I'm trying to show you is different ways to mark up your quilt, and then I'm going to talk to you just a tiny little bit about the importance of marking up your quilt before you get to the machine. So let's talk about markings. Okay, so as I said, I'm not going to show you where to place your markings because obviously I have absolutely no idea, but I wanted to show you how important it is to figure some things out before you ever get to the machine, so that way everything is just, smooth sailing. So this quilt here, or rather this fabric here, is just some sample sew outs that I've done. So there are some pantos that are wide, like this one. So this one's wider rather than square. This one is also wider, and I obviously sewed it into this a little bit. This one is just big all around. This one is square. They're all different ways. So once you figure out on your screen what the size of your pantos are and what your, what height you want and those kinds of things, you're going to want to mark your quilt. Now, you can mark it at the machine if you choose to. If you choose to mark it at the machine, you would just, take your ruler and mark down wherever, place your needle at the 1.5, 2.5, whatever mark. But another thing that I like to do is use these embroidery target stickers. Now, I showed a video about a week or so ago using the target stickers, and I think that they're just really, really wonderful because you're going to put your sticker right there where the needle point would go down. So that X right there is exactly where you want your needle to go. These stick really well. They stick to your fabric really well. Place them on the fabric before you get to the machine, and then when you get to the machine, you know literally exactly where your needle's going to go. So you would just take your ruler. Let's just say I want to be 2.5 inches down from there. I would take my target sticker and place my mark right there. I'm literally right at 2.5 inches, and that's where I would go over to my machine, place that. Another way that you can mark your measurements is with a chalk pencil. So if you have a dark fabric, you could use something like this, which is just a simple chalk pencil. It has different colored chalks that come in it. So depending on what color your quilt is, you can mark your markings just like that, and then that's where you would line it up at. If you have a light colored quilt, you can use something like a friction pen or an erasable pen that erases with heat or water. You can also use stick pins. Now, stick pins would not be my choice necessarily. However, let's just say I want to have a mark right there. I would take my stick pin and just push it through to where that head is the only thing that I see. So that's another way that you can mark your quilt. Anyhow, like I said, just a quick little PSA, I guess, on marking up your quilt, because if you take the time to mark up your quilt here at the table or on the floor, wherever it is you get all your setup done, then when you get over to the machine, you know exactly where everything should go. So that's my little talk on marking. Okay, so my very last little teeny tiny tip is magnets. So Grace Company sends you these big, I say bulky, clamps and clips and stuff. And I have found that using magnets is so much easier and so much more, I guess, intuitive for me. So I'm going to show you a couple of different magnets that I use, and hopefully you can decide for yourself which ones you want to use. Okay, so when I lay my quilt on my frame, I always use these magnets. Now, these particular magnets are made by a company called So Tights. They're called So Tights Magnum, and they just look like this. They've got 5 little magnets on the back, a long bar. I would say that's maybe 2.5, 3 inches long, and I use 4 across the top, 4 across the bottom. Now, also sometimes what I'll do if I need a little bit of extra tension in my quilt is I will use these. These are a little 2-pack of magnets that I got from Harbor Freight Tools, because we have several Harbor Freight tool shops in our area. Again, I'll just kind of put them in between my little spaces here just to get a little bit of extra tension. Now, another magnet that you can use is this one. This one is also from Harbor Freight. I think it's for hanging on the wall and having, like, you know, scissors and wrenches and all kinds of stuff. It's got a very strong magnet here, and it's for, you know, laying your tools on top of it. It works really, really well. However, because it works so well, I'm going to need to get some sort of little knobs or something to put on these little ends so that when I attach it to the frame, I can get it off easily, because if I were to put it on there now, I would probably have a heck of a time getting it off. I think these are about $8 or so, also from Harbor Freight, and I would probably get 4 of them. I would probably do 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. So these are the magnets that I use, and I think that they're super duper helpful. They're a lot easier for me than using the blue clips. Okay, so as I was talking to you about the magnets, I thought of one more thing that I think could be super duper helpful for you, and that is leader and ender claws. So I did a video a couple of weeks ago on making my own leader and ender claws, and because I don't do a lot of quilts, because I've only done just a few quilts in my life and none yet on the QMX, I've done several small projects. And when you're doing small projects, obviously you don't want to have to use 2 yards of fabric to set it up on the frame. So I use my leader and ender claws. I've had a chance to use them once now, and I was thrilled because it saved me all kinds of fabric. So I'm going to show you really quick what that might look like lined up on the machine with a small project, just so that you can see how helpful leader and ender claws might be. Now, if you want to check out my video from, again, I think it was last week, I just used an $18 or $19 2-yard piece of canvas duck cloth I got off of Amazon. It took maybe an hour to sew them up, and they are strong and sturdy. They don't stretch, and they will save you fabric, and they'll save you some frustration. So let me show you how they get set up. Okay, so this is what I mean. So this is my leader cloth, and I've got the leader cloth attached to just a regular fat quarter, because a lot of the projects that I make with quilting are actually fat quarter size. So I've got the entire, or you know, the whole frame filled up with my leader cloth, which is all the way across here. And then just this area has my actual fabric. Now, also down below, I have attached my ender cloth, so that way as I move my project up in the frame, I still have the same ease of attaching it to the frame that I had with the leader cloth. So with this particular project, I may add a side leader, because I did make side leaders, but I'm not 100% positive, because this has great tension. Anyhow, using leader and ender claws, especially when you're using small projects, are going to be super duper extra helpful for you with this cutie frame. So hopefully my tips and tricks today were helpful for you. I know that some of these things are common knowledge, so they may just be a repeat of information for you, but hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you gathered some new information that you didn't already have. And next week's video, as long as everything works out the way that I'm hoping it will, is another video on corners and borders. So I think that I have figured out a pretty good workaround or solve or whatever on how to actually sew a good corner. So the last video that I did on corners and borders was kind of my attempt at coming up with a little something out of the box, but this one I think is going to be a little bit better, or actually a lot better, as long as it works out. I was hoping to do it for today's video, but unfortunately I'm waiting on a delivery for something that has not come in yet, so until I get that I can't continue with the video. So anyhow, hopefully it will post by next Friday, and hopefully it'll be a good one. Hopefully it gives you a lot of really good information on corners and borders. So anyhow, I hope you learned something. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all those things. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I will see you on Tuesday. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.